folks, remember when I talked about the Looney Tunes show?
Folks, I've never been so angry at one thing before. Funky cold Medina mother fruit salad wearing sons of ditching brother trucking jock sucking father plucking witch ditch pitch itching asphalt chucking. Like Bugs and Daffy are the only ones we care about. Idiotic show! Frugal stopping bag handling plaster selling bull sitting horse spinning dog grabbing duck ship eating convenience storing jackholes. And it was freaking terrible! Oh my freaking gosh! I can't even begin to explain what is wrong with this show, but I'll try. That's just sick. That's just plain sick. Screw this show. Sister Christian yodeling, asset finding, grandma napping, uncle cousins binge jumping, father mothering, floored, flub block-headed morons. Train!
Yeah, I mentioned it a few times. Well, it might surprise everybody, but I still don't care for it. Now hear me out here. The humor is too awkward for my taste, the plots can get pretty cliched, and for a show with Looney in its name, you'd expect a little more Looney, you know? Arrested Development is more Looney than this show.
Hey, your daddy! How's it going, brother?
You want to pop the trunk and roll the windows down, please?
But at the same time, I don't flat out hate it anymore either. And since then, I started to appreciate the good things about it that people like. So to make up for years of cringe, allow me to be a little more optimistic as I count down the top 12 good things about the Looney Tunes show. Porky Pig. Porky has got to be one of the most underrated Looney Tunes characters. The guy was Warner Brothers' first big star that looked like he can compete with Mickey Mouse. But just as his star was rising, the rug was pulled out from under him by Daffy Duck, who had his rug pulled by Bugs Bunny. So he never really gets quite the respect he deserves. In a world of wacky characters around him, he was always the everyman, always down to earth, and always funny in his own way. And I think the writers of the show did a great job of matching his personality. Watch an episode of Porky and try to distinguish him from the Porky of old. In fact, they use Porky in their own unique way, as they use him as the voice of reason when the other characters are giving him crap. That's pretty funny. Might seem like a minor thing to note, but I'm glad to see they weren't afraid to give one of my favorite characters some love and respect. Treating Daffy and Bugs as equals. This is something as a Daffy fan that I feel the original shorts, as well as future adaptations, always seem to get wrong. It's common knowledge that Daffy came before Bugs, but since Bugs came around, Daffy slowly got less and less love until he was tossed aside like a burnt piece of meat. It got to the point where it started to feel like Daffy torture porn.
Yeah, you're so smart. If I was the rabbit, what would you do?
Well,
Not again.
He rarely got to win at the end of cartoons after he became a jerk character. I can understand this happening to antagonists like Yosemite Sam or Sylvester, but this is one of your big main stars who people got to liking. Why must you punish him? But slowly, Warner Brothers started to give Daffy the respect he deserves, and finally in the Looney Tunes show, he was on the same level as the bunny. Both of them are named in the intro, both of them are main characters living together, and both of them have their episodes to be winners, as well as losers. Whenever I told people that Daffy was my favorite Looney Tune, they either thought I was weird, or thought I was kidding. I guess years of Daffy being treated like a joke made people feel that way about him. Now, it feels like he's nobody's whipping boy. He's a big star just like Bugs. Sure, Duck Dodger started that trend, but Looney Tunes show had the guts to put Daffy in the same house as Bugs. And I think that's pretty cool. I'm gonna be kicking my own ass for this one. But Lola is a good character. Ow! Yes, to be fair, as much as the character caused me annoyance over the years, I must admit that her naivete and awkwardness grew on me. This kind of character was seen before with Luann Plyer from King of the Hill, and later Lenny Loud from The Loud House. But what made Lola stand out was she had an extra layer of psychosis to her. She can be downright menacing at times, adding some dark humor to the show's arsenal. And, honestly, I exaggerated in my early years. Big shock, I know. So, not gonna lie, her voice never really bothered me that much. So yes, after years of wishing death upon a fake cartoon bunny, nowadays, Lola is just alright by me. However, I still prefer the Space Jam version because she's hot. Don't judge me, y'all fell for it too, internet. It's better than Baby Looney Tunes and Lunatics Unleashed. What more do I need to say? Fuck those shows. Taz was a threatening character again. Taz started out as a pretty destructive antagonist in the original shorts, but they tended to dumb him down in later years, especially in shows like Tazmania. Why? Sure, he was gullible and easy to fool in the original shorts, but he was still a scary character who could cause lots of damage, possibly Bugs Bunny's most intimidating foe. But nope, let's just make him the family sitcom cartoon. Cause that's his character, right? But thanks to Looney Tunes show, he was back to his menacing roots. Sure, he was Bugs and Daffy's dog, but they took him seriously again instead of just making him an idiot. Heck, even the intro of his debut episode is a parody of the opening of Jurassic Park. Can't get more intimidating than that. So while a lot of character changes didn't make sense, like why is Gossamer a little kid and Witch Hazel a sassy black woman, it was nice to see that they decided to bring an iconic character back to his roots. The character designs and art direction. Going to art school taught me to appreciate everything that goes into productions of cartoons, especially the visuals. The Looney Tunes show had to be one of Cartoon Network's better looking shows at the time. While Looney Tunes show was on, Cartoon Network was airing Adventure Time, Regular Show, and The Amazing World of Gumball along with it. Don't get me wrong, all those shows look great in their own way, but Looney Tunes show really stood out. It brought back the classic cartoon style from the 40s and 50s. This is helped by how well designed the characters are. Sure, they're a little harder to draw than characters like Gumball or Finn and Jake, but that only adds to the show's visual style, which looks beautiful. The colors aren't overly saturated that they hurt your eyes, the backgrounds are downplayed to help the characters stand out. It's just a show that feels good to look at. This might not be something a lot of people pay attention to, but in an era where folks are complaining about cowl art style and bean-shaped heads, it's great to see a modern cartoon that wasn't afraid to be a little more complex with its character designs and colorful with its backgrounds. It showcased some obscure characters. The Looney Tunes is probably the most diverse collection of unique characters in one series. Sure, you have your long list of starring characters, but you'll barely scratch the surface when you realize just how many characters the boys of Termite Cirrus came up with. And this show was a way to give those lesser known characters their due and bring them back to Main Street audiences' attention. How many casual viewers know who the Goofy Gophers are? How about Pete Puma? And, my goodness, props to one of the most sinister portrayals of Cecil Turtle, a character who only appeared in 3 Bugs Bunny cartoons. Sure, there may be a lot of characters they didn't work with. I personally would have loved to see the 2 crows from Tacos pop up in the show, but it was refreshing to see some underrated characters get their chance to shine. The voice acting. No matter how much I dislike a show, great voice acting is always something I give credit to, and this show had plenty of talent. Jeff Bergman was back voicing Bugs and Daffy, and while you can tell he's aged a bit, he did his best and made them sound like experienced veterans who were just trying to settle down. I already complimented Kristen Wiig when I was talking about Lola. Jess Harnell and Rob Paulson as the Goofy Gophers is a match made in voice acting heaven. Bob Bergen is always great as Porky, and Maurice LaMarche always impresses me as Yosemite Sam. It's heartwarming to know that even though the original Looney Tunes voice actors passed on, There's always great talent to take their place and continue to breathe life into the legendary characters. It existed in its own world. So, one of the biggest complaints me and several others had about this show was that it put the Looney Tunes characters in a contemporary setting. It's true, the Looney Tunes personalities were toned down a bit, but in this show, it kind of works. Sure, it seemed off-putting that animals and humans exist in the same modern setting, but in the original cartoons, it didn't always follow the same rules. One cartoon, Bugs and Daffy were animals being hunted by humans, while in another cartoon, Daffy and Porky are cops in space, or cowboys, or Robin Hood and Friar Tuck. In this show, they just happen to be modern people dealing with modern problems. Might seem kinda weird, but BoJack Horseman taught us one thing about animals living with humans. It's just a cartoon, who cares? The fact the overall tone of the show is more deadpan and ironic than usual Looney Tunes adaptations, the characters' down-to-earth attitudes fit in the style of the show. It might not be one I particularly agree with, but it resonated with a lot of people, so the writers must have done something right. Yellow Bird Murray Melody. I've heard even the biggest defenders of this show say they flat out hate the Merry Melodies music videos. There are only a couple I say I really liked. Queso Bandito, which was pretty cool because it's Mexican, and I love all things Mexican. And this video. Not gonna lie, this alone is what inspired me to do this video. This music video is just non-stop fun. I love the ska punk inspired song, and the fact that it brings Tweety back to his mischievous roots. It's a little known fact that before Tweety became the wide-eyed cutie that I hate so much, he was a pretty conniving little devil who actually fought back against cats who antagonized him, instead of waiting for Granny to come in and save him. Look at that smug little bastard, he knows what he's doing. I may not be a big fan of the Sylvester and Tweety cartoons, but this video with its fast-paced music and cute yet evil Tweety makes it a blast to watch, and it alone is one of the reasons why I decided to be a little less harsh on this show. Casa de Calma, just this episode, which happens to be my favorite of the show. Why? Because it feels like the spirit of the original Looney Tunes cartoons reborn. Bugs and Daffy battle over the affection of an attractive Hollywood actress. Bugs and Daffy are rivals, just like the originals. This leads to a series of gags involving Daffy getting hurt and his attempts to impress the actress, just like the originals. It had lots of cartoony humor that wasn't restricted to the contemporary setting, just like, well, you know. Yes, I know, I was complimenting this show earlier for not making Daffy Duck torture porn, but once in a while it's kind of funny. This is an episode that sticks out, as it doesn't match the tone or style of the rest of the series. And why is that? Well, I don't have a lot of info to back this up, but from what I remember reading on a Looney Tunes forum back at the time, this episode was held over from a Looney Tunes show that Warner Brothers was working on before what we ultimately got was the Looney Tunes show. It's clear that the show that was in development was meant to be more in spirit of the original cartoons before Warner Brothers ordered the show to become more sitcom inspired. I could be wrong, but that theory makes perfect sense to me because this episode clearly shows the Looney Tunes show was meant to be something completely different. And with how wacky this episode is, it really does live up to the title of the Looney Tunes show. Oh, what could have been. But for what it is, it's great that they decided to give diehards one episode full of Looney Tunes goodness that they crave. And introduce a new generation to Looney Tunes. They're quite possibly the greatest cartoon characters of all time, loved the world over, inspiration to countless comedians, artists, and animators everywhere. And no matter how different a new adaptation is from the original, it's always a great way to introduce younger generations to what came before. It'll allow them to fall in love with the new adaptation, do further research, and discover older versions that came before. The cycle will always continue. It reminds me of the late 90s when the new Godzilla movie was coming out. and Sony promoted the heck out of it by releasing a lot of older Godzilla movies on VHS, which allowed me to be introduced to what would become my favorite film franchise of all time. Say whatever you want about that crappy movie, but without it, I probably never would have gotten into Godzilla, and who knows where I would be. I see the Looney Tunes show the same way. As a kid, I didn't care whether it was Space Jam or the shorts. I always loved seeing characters I grew attached to. When it comes to characters as beloved as Looney Tunes, there's always going to be new adaptations that come around. Some good, some bad, but no matter what, the originals we fell in love with will always be there, and the future adaptations will come around to guide the youngsters back to where it all started. So there's a fifth look at the Looney Tunes show. The show really ain't something I'd watch too often, but it's grown on me a bit. It wasn't trying to disrespect or top the originals. It was just trying something a bit different with characters we all know and love, and that's something to be admired. Gotta admit, the crew was taking a risk doing something so different with such sacred characters. They must have had to deal with a lot of annoying and offended fans, myself included. But for what it is, the Looney Tunes show is just alright with me. Stay loony, my toonies.
With a country boy, a country boy, a country boy. Don't go messing with a country boy, don't mess with a country boy. When I was a little bitty boy, baby, I cut my teeth on a big old tree. Mama filled my bottle from my moonshine still.